All right, here we go. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Here we are at Life on Track, again, where it's all about helping you get into the driver's seat of your own life, personally and professionally. Not my lane, not Dr. John Gray's lane, your own life, your own lane, your God-given lane. And I love John. John has been on this show multiple times talking about Mars and Venus. That's his whole thing, right? And so we talked about, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, the differences between men and women personally. Then we did an episode on men and women in the workplace. Then we did an episode on children, which was amazing. And I also, John, I interviewed John back in 2018 on a summit about communicating confidently at home in the workplace. I just love you, John. I consider you a friend. You're a blessing, and you're a blessing not only to my life, but a blessing to the world. So welcome.
Thank you, Erin. It's a real pleasure again to be with you. Thank you.
You're the best. So I want to get into this because you're a wealth of information and so timely, So why don't you tell us how you got into doing what you're doing with the whole Mars Venus thing and why?
Well, the whole Mars Venus thing, I grew up with 5 brothers. So that's 6 boys in a house. It was, I know masculinity quite well. I was very much of an entrepreneur as a teenager. I loved girls. I had a very active sex life as a teenager. And then I got really high in the 60s, crashed, and became a monk. I saw the Beatles had learned meditation. I'm very ambitious. So I became the personal assistant of Maharishi, who started the Transcendental Meditation movement. I lived with him for 9 years, and I wanted to be like him. And he was a celibate. So I went from sex to celibacy to devotion to God to become the best person I can be, personal growth. And then around 28, that was a time where, okay, now I got all this enlightenment. What am I supposed to do in my life? And I didn't really know, but I got on an airplane, came out to California, found my old car, traveled around, had lots of girlfriends because I didn't have much money. They would cook for me. I'd stay at their place. We'd do more. But during that time, I thought, what can I teach? I'm a teacher. I've got that. That's, some people are a pine tree. Some people are tomato plant, whatever. I'm a teacher. It's in my blood. I was drawn to this like amazing world teacher, Maharishi. And he was a good example for me. He was a man who was doing his best to make the world better. He was never cruel to anybody. He was having a good time. I thought it wasn't like I saw those things like that's what I'm looking for. I just was enamored by somebody who was successful and was happy. And really what I was drawn to is that one day I would become a world teacher. I had no idea. I felt like a peanut. I was happy to be around him. And I still didn't know what I was going to do, but I became very successful in his organization, in his movement. I'm a good teacher.
Yeah.
But when I came out in the world, basically what I decided to do was teach something which would be mine, not his. I didn't want to just copy him. Not that he didn't have wonderful to copy,
Right.
but it was like, what am I supposed to bring into the world? And it was, I was having sex with all these women. I would interview them about what made sex great. And I learned a lot. And I thought, a bunch of men don't know this. I could start teaching this. So I taught a class called Enlightened Sexuality. And so that's how I got into it. And then of course, then what you see is a lot of the sexual attraction changes over time. And you kind of go, wow, how'd that happen? I'm sitting here with this woman that I was so attracted to, and it's all gone. I couldn't figure it out. So I realized you have to have relationship skills if you want to keep the passion and the attraction. And these are things we can learn to do. I was able to do that with my wife of 34 years until she passed on. Very attracted to her. And we had great sex, loving sex, making love. And I just have a big belief that that's really important in the world for some people. So I teach that for those who are interested in sustaining the passion in a relationship.
I love this. And you rocked the world in the 90s. I'm 58 years old, and I remember in my 20s and early 30s just being like, oh my God, John Gray is amazing, and you were just making things that were so complicated, so simple.
Yeah.
You just simplified everything with regard to the differences between men and women. Like women want to talk, their significant others, with their ears off, and the significant other just wants to go into a man cave. And there's all these skills that men and women didn't have until you showed up. And I love the fact you were called to learn from that amazing spiritual leader, because that's what was within you, John.
Yeah. I had to find the potential within myself. And he would say that this is learn to meditate in order to discover your full human potential. And so then it came about, and it was wonderful. It works. I still meditate every day. I think it's really valuable, but I also exercise every day. I do occasional fasting. I'm just right now coming out of a 3-day fast. So, these are take care of your body, take care of your mind, and study psychology. But for me, marriage, intimacy, sharing your life with someone, that's my journey. And makes me very happy. And if that's something people want, my ideas really help.
Yes, they do. And I love how you marry the holistic side of the way you eat and the way you take, herbs and everything else instead of pharmaceuticals because you and I had also spoken in the last interview and offline about ADHD and all the natural ways that you can treat all these other.
Yeah. ADHD is a scam in terms of, if you say ADHD, people say, oh, you believe in that? Then you're believing in giving children speed, giving them drugs. I don't believe in giving them drugs at all. But there is what I would call inhibited dopamine function in the brain. It's inhibited dopamine function. So what that means is these scattered kids, you take a boy and he can't sit in a classroom, he's scattered, put him in front of a video game. He has no problem focusing. He can focus for hours. It's his dopamine function is at a level where he needs high stimulation in order to stay focused. Normal stimulation doesn't allow him to focus. So that's due to, in many cases, can be due to trauma, can be due to concussions, can be due to various things. But the cure for it has a lot to do with nutritional support and minimizing overstimulation. So our brain is designed to be stimulated, but then we have to rest afterwards. So when you're excited by something, dopamine goes really high and you feel really good. The receptor sites for dopamine close up. So now you don't feel really high, you don't feel really good. And for some people, when it closes down, they have to go back up. So they get addicted to high stimulation, and normal stimulation is boring. This is actually what causes all addiction. It's just high dopamine lowers the receptor sites. And what can happen is that you don't have to depend on high dopamine if when your receptor sites are lowered, that you do things to increase serotonin. Now, serotonin is a balancing factor to dopamine, and that's relationship, that's love, that's nature, that's normal stimulation. And you go through a cycle of a little boredom, but then suddenly nature's beautiful. Your kids go outside and leave them alone for a little while. They're kind of bored, don't know what to do. And then they find something to do. It happens naturally. Those receptor sites in nature are in a situation of peace and calm, and a situation of love, communication, all the things that we want to have in our life for relationships. That then opens the receptor sites up. Then even a little dopamine gives us excitement and motivation.
I love this. I absolutely love this. And I want to get into how Mars and Venus can recover now in 2025 with everything Mars and Venus has been through for a few years now. But I think what you just said
is right there. This is like perfect because, what I just described is what's going to everybody right now. We live in terror. Terror this, danger here, can't do that. And this is high dopamine stimulation. You see, anything which is new and different or dangerous stimulates these high levels of dopamine. It's like we're all living on cocaine. That's what cocaine does. And then when we start to try to find that relaxed place, it's so boring and so flat that we go back to the excitement. So we're kind of addicted to all the crazy right now. And
which is crazy because we're addicted to fear. It literally just, it's not even like a good thing that we're addicted to, it's fear.
That's right. Danger produces dopamine. You get addicted to being in dangerous situations. Let me put this in a context for people to understand. Soldiers, we discovered PTSD with the soldiers coming back. So they're in danger all the time and they're pumped up on caffeine. They're rocking the world. And then they come home, and a lot of them are glad to come home, but then suddenly they become bored. And they do crazy things to try to bump up their dopamine. They take drugs, suicide, all these crazy things start happening. And I've counseled these men. They want to go back to when they left the battle. They're glad to be home. They don't want to be in the trenches. But when they get here, this is worse. They want to go back because they want that high dopamine stimulation. And this is what happens. People get addicted to violence. They get addicted to being in fear. And what are the symptoms? Now let's take it a step further in relationships. Women have a different relationship with fear than men. Okay, just to know that. Women have much higher estrogen levels than men. Whenever you're feeling fear, you're in touch with what I need. I need help. Whenever you need help, estrogen levels go up. If you go to a doctor, your estrogen levels go up. If you were to get help from a therapist or reading a good book that's helping you in some way, filling the gap for you, estrogen goes up. You have a boyfriend, a husband, whatever, who you feel, oh, I can be with, they're doing nice things for me. That's going to be anytime you feel I can get help, I'm not alone, estrogen levels go up, stress levels go down. And so what happens for women is because they have more estrogen, if they're not getting the support, then what happens is they feel more fear. So whenever anybody's feeling fear, their estrogen levels are high at that point. They're feeling the need for support, and support is not there. If you're having high estrogen and support is there, then you're feeling really, really happy. Okay. I give you an example of a couple. I used to do these long 1 week long classes, having men and women talk about everything, their relationships. And we were doing a big discussion on what helps you to cope with the stress of the workplace. And this one couple, they were emergency doctors. Okay. They worked in the emergency place, life and death, talk about stress. Okay.
Yeah.
And so what do you guys do? And they said, we ride motorcycles. And they had some friends as well. They would go riding motorcycles. And I looked at the woman, I said, you ride a motorcycle to de-stress? And she said, no, I sit on the back and I said, you trust the way your husband drives? Absolutely. So what's that situation is she's in a place of danger. Because you ride on a motorcycle, if you're at least mature, you know you're in danger.
Motorcycle.
I was the head of a motorcycle club as a teenager, so I didn't think danger. You're going so fast, weaving between the cars. You have no idea how dangerous
I got on
is.
it once, never again.
Crazy. But anyway, so they go riding, and she says, yes, he drives, but he drives in a way that makes me feel safe. Feeling safe is different from being safe. Yeah. See, if you're just sitting in a room and there's no danger around you, it can be kind of flat. But if there's a little danger and you have help, then suddenly these hormones of estrogen and oxytocin start to go up higher. So a little danger in life, along with getting help. That's the key that raises the female hormones that are beneficial female hormones to lower the stress hormone. So if she doesn't have the support to keep her when her estrogen levels need to be higher, okay, then what happens? She's in a stress mode. And for her, as soon as she goes into stress mode, and then this is true for men, and when men are in a stress mode or a woman is in a stress mode, the brain goes into a bias to only see problems. Okay. You only see problems. Your brain is, all you see is a problem here and a problem here. It was back when they started talking about terrorism, it's just like, right. Is there a terrorist behind every bush,
Right.
You're looking, if you're in danger, you're hyper alert to look at what's wrong. You're not about to look at what's good.
And they didn't make us feel safe.
No, you can't have loving relationships if you're always looking at what's wrong, what's dangerous. Right. And so here you are, a woman, you come home and your brain just goes into what's wrong, depending upon how much fear she's feeling. Typically, men don't experience as much fear. So they don't have as much of that tendency to look at what's wrong. So they'll often say things like, what's the big deal? Well, don't worry about it. Well, it's not a problem. And then a woman then feels even more fear. Don't you understand what I'm feeling? If you don't understand me, how can I depend on you? And now the estrogen levels go down. Basically, she doesn't feel safe at all.
This is a great talking point, because when you're saying this about women, and I want to get into the men also, but society keeps women in fear.
Right now it does. All this news, total.
For the longest time, without any reprieve. It's just, okay, we have fear with this, and now we went from a pandemic to a quad-demic, or whatever they're calling it now, with 4 different, like all these, but there's never been a reprieve of, we got this. Don't worry, you guys, drop your shoulders to where they belong. We're taking care of you. You don't have to worry about this. There's been no reprieve where, as a citizen,
that's what's necessary to reset the dopamine levels in the brain. Because once you're dependent on high dopamine, basically you're looking for things to produce high dopamine. So people get addicted to watching the news. You watch the news to get that dopamine stimulation. Yes. New and different and dangerous, not good for women.
And that I guess is the end game, because everybody's glued. I don't watch the news, but everybody seems to be glued to the news. And I guess they keep you dependent on them, as opposed to what you're going to talk about on how you could just go within yourself, like I do also, and just find ways that we can comfort ourselves and feel that we have control of our own lives, because they're not coming, so we got to go within and create our own happiness, create our own sense of well-being, which is so important, and authenticity, and just staying with who you are as opposed to capitulating what you think you're supposed to be as far as normal goes. I want to get into that also, because when you were talking about the kids earlier with the ADD and everything else, I was thinking about school, right? And everybody has to conform as children to the norm, right? To the norm.
Oh, you mean prison?
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah. Go
I'll
there.
tell you, I think schools do more damage to people than anybody can ever
Totally.
imagine. How much did you actually learn at school? What can you relearn? You can learn it all at home.
Right.
This is like they imprison you there, and you're told to act a certain way, sit a certain way, think a certain way. They're telling you what you should remember rather than how to think about things, how to analyze things, and how to be yourself. It's so combining. Everybody's so different, and suddenly everybody has to wear the same outfits and be this, be this. So there's a rebellion against that. The rebellion against that is to be really weird. Okay, anything that seems normal, we got to be abnormal. When it's because they take which is such an abnormal situation of being in the classroom that allows people to feel so much pain and cramp of not being seen and heard and nurtured and supported. When you have that, then you're going to rebel against it. And it has just, we as human beings are evolving. Consciousness is higher. Yeah. That's the good news. Even during all of this craziness, we're all waking up to realizing that mommy and daddy aren't always right. That means the government is not always right. That means the World Health Organization is not always right. The National Institute of Health is not always right. People don't know that every year there's like 50 or 100 different drugs that are bad for you that they recall. The testing doesn't anything. It's also corrupt. It's all just about, deceiving people, lying to people. And now people are waking up.
Totally.
There's a big wake up, and that's higher consciousness. That higher consciousness is there. We just have to be able to deal with the wounds that have occurred, because when you have higher consciousness, this is interesting. When things are good, let's take an example of a lottery winner. Quite often people win the lottery, they have millions of dollars. They waste it all. They become very arrogant. They become egotistical. Their marriages break up. Their friends don't like them anymore. What happens is when you feel I'm safe to be myself, that's consciousness. I'm a good person, self-esteem, then what happens is unresolved issues from your past show up. And you don't realize that they're unresolved issues from the past. Okay. And so you become like a very self-centered child. And this is what happens to people when they're successful. It also happens a little bit when you get married. Okay. When you get married, you feel finally I can be myself. I don't have to be hunting. I don't have to be people pleaser. I don't have to worry about everybody. I've got what I want. I feel so good. And then boom. Then insecurities come up, doubts come up, negativity comes up. Then that negativity looks for negativity. Now we got the news to look at the negativity. We're looking around all the time. Yeah. So anyway, the idea here is that when I said we realized that our parents were wrong, when you know what is true, as children, we don't know what is true. Right. So that's the thing. We believe everything we're told. So if your parents scold you, or they're cruel to you, or they neglect you, or you think they're neglecting you, whatever, you will assume you deserve it. You deserve it. And so much of our fear and anxiety is we don't deserve, or we're not good enough. It holds us back. And it's like a different set of glasses that we're wearing instead of, really clear glasses of who we are, what we are. So we buy into deception. So we get, like a woman, I was just counseling a woman who, she's always finding men who are abusive. This starts out great and they're abusive men. And then, well, tell me about your father. He was abusive. So a pattern that is what we know in psychology. Patterns repeat there to teach us a lesson, to understand that we weren't not at fault. And the irony is then as we become older adults, we realize that we are responsible for everything that happens in our lives.
100% of the results are
growing up. But as children, we assume if our parents are in a bad mood, it's our fault. Now, I know people can't remember this, but just look at the logic of it. You come into this world and everybody's happy to see you. Oh, I'm like a miracle person. Everybody's happy to see me. They all love me. They all want to make me happy. Parents always want to make their children happy. And then suddenly, I want this ice cream. They don't give it to me. What went wrong? Why don't they want to give it to me? They used to, or they did on Thursday. Why aren't they doing it now? When we make people happy, which is what all children do. I'm just talking about this because one of my granddaughters is 2 years old. I mean, it's just like getting hit by the Shakti pot of a guru or something. You just see these kids and the pure love and joy and innocence and laughter, just playfulness. This is who we all were. And then when somebody punishes us, or when our parents are dysfunctional, when they're angry or upset, we assume it's our fault. So then we start judging ourselves and we start to feel we're not good enough. And then if we're unfortunate enough to be in a family where your parents actually think you're not good enough. Oh, if only you were like your brother. If only you were like this. Well, you didn't do good on the test. A little disappointment here. Well, I still love you. Messages like that. We subconsciously take it all in.
Totally.
And,
Yes.
this is why, they used to say you can't change this. Anything that you absorbed at 7 years, up to 7 years old, you can't change, because at 7 years old or before that, your brain is in a theta state. They've studied, alpha state, theta state, beta state. When your brain is in a theta state, you're in a state of hypnosis. So if not everybody can be hypnotized, but some hypnosis guys are really good, and you'll go into a state of hypnosis. You won't even remember what happened. And you can be suggested to do a lot of different things. So the point is, when we're in that theta state, it's also the dream state. When we're dreaming, it's a fantasy. Everything's a fantasy. We believe everything that comes in. So they used to think that once you're programmed, you can't change that. The good news is you can change that. You just need to get into the theta state.
Yeah.
This is, what we're learning with brain science and so forth to help people get into theta state. And that's when you meditate. So you're like a radiant goddess. You meditate, you do spiritual things. That's all theta state. And at that time, then you can look at yourself with anything, negative thoughts, negative beliefs, and you can change them. And then through repetition, affirmation, when you're in the theta state, doing affirmations, if you're not in theta state, not going to work. So you have to be in that fully feeling place and use your imagination and imagine that this is true. And then you do your affirmations, you anchor them in, and they've changed my life. I'm a big believer in affirmations. I think I'm going to write another book and just have it be about affirmations and how to get into that state of know yourself.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Know thyself.
I've decided this new year, I just want to share some of my enthusiasm. First of all, a dynamics that happened due to this shutdown. The shutdown not only messed our kids up, it messed up a lot of people in many different ways. But one of the ways is that when you can't go out and be yourself, you start to adjust to not going out and being yourself. Okay? What happens to people is we adjust, and we that becomes our new safe zone. That becomes our comfort zone. Once we can't get out of it, it becomes our comfort zone. And for me,
under the guise of we were doing the right thing.
Say that again.
Under the guise of we were doing the right thing.
Under the guise of this is what you have to do to be safe. You're doing the right thing, but also outside is dangerous. So this is your safety zone that you have to come in. And I don't buy into any of that stuff. I know the government's corrupt. I know all this stuff, but still staying at home. I stopped traveling. And of course, when people weren't traveling, they weren't going to seminars, so there wasn't a lot to travel for. But I really like staying home for several years now since all that happened. And I saw an example on YouTube, which was a big bottle. And they said, if you put fleas in a bottle, like, they're tiny fleas. So 1,000 fleas, say you put in a bottle, and they can jump really high. They jump on your couch, they jump on your dog, all this stuff. But if you put in a bottle, put a top on it for 3 days, take the top off, and those fleas will never jump out.
Yeah.
They'll get right to the top and go right back down. Once you set a limit, this is all you can be, then and you're stuck in there. Take it off. And then when those fleas have babies, they won't jump out either.
It's so sad.
Yeah, this is what's going on. This is generations of trauma is what's going on with what they've done in the world. Completely unnecessary, completely dysfunctional.
I call it crimes against humanity,
Yeah, of course. I'm right with you. And so I'll apply that to the way schools are today. It's crimes against humanity.
Totally.
They're trying to dumb people down rather than help them explore their interests and develop and study what they want to study, as opposed to things I'm not interested in this. I personally, I hated school, and maybe there were moments where I had an interesting teacher, but I slept most of the time while I was in school. Just like, this is boring. I would just sleep. My teachers, they had such compassion on me. They felt sorry for me. This little boy doesn't get any sleep at night. They talked to my mother. He's just bored to death. That's all. The one place where I was alive was in mathematics for me personally, because in mathematics, it's self-reliance. It's like you have to figure it out yourself. It's not depending on the others for their nonsense. And anyway, so today, then we've gone to woke kids are not even passing the basic skills because of the whole
No.
emphasis on woke and emphasis on being uh, uh, the whole division that's going on of the haves and the have-nots, the different identities. Your
They're
identity, you're
confusing
oppressed.
these
It's
kids.
it's
They're
it's the
confused.
oppressor and the oppressed. I mean,
Right.
think about you're going through life and you're in the white supremacist. I must be a white supremacist here because I'm successful. I must have killed Indians to get here.
No, it's nonsense, John.
I
It's
have to tell you, I was having a social event late at night. You sit around the fire and there's people you're meeting, and this guy was I won't say who he is, it would be embarrassing, but let's say one of the most important hospitals in the country, and he was the head of the brain surgery department, and he was black. Okay, and so as the night goes on, then we got into reparations. Do we need to give reparations? And he had this whole argument why we should give reparations to all black people. And I said, well, I didn't do anything to black people. I have friends of black people. Why am I being charged that? So, and he says, well, your relatives did, or whatever, your ancestors did. And I said, oh, you want to talk about ancestors? I also used to do past life regressions on people. And I was a black soldier and the Civil War. So why am I not getting it? Because in my last life, I was a black soldier. He would not talk to me after that. He didn't believe in past lives either, probably. But what we want, we're striving. We're a country. We're striving. We've never achieved perfection. But all these people who come to our country who hate this country and want to change this country from a place of hatred, lack of love, lack of appreciation. Why does everybody want to come here? If you don't like it here, go. But yes, you can criticize without a date. But the hatred, when you have hatred and you have venom against something, you won't be successful anyway. This is like one of the most important communication skills ever in life. It's a life principle, is when you push at something, it will push back.
Mm-hmm.
All this is doing is just causing people to push back against causes that could be very helpful and so forth. But there are evil forces in the planet. Yes. And I am a Christian, and I believe in God, and people, and I experience the divine. We all have different meaning of when I say God. It's not what I learned in church, but
right. Me too. Yeah.
But to know that there's a higher power that's guiding this, an intelligence in the universe, and you can align with it. And, how did I write all those books? Is aligning with the creative power inside of me. Yes. And that's the force that makes everything happen. And it can also, you can push against it. And when you push against the light, what you end up with is the darkness.
Yeah.
And if you believe in God, then you have to believe the devil exists and the devil possesses people. This is the oldest knowledge. I also studied in India, as well as in Catholicism, how to do take the devil out. Okay. I can do that. Okay. It's just a technique that you do, and you have to have a certain grounded in your belief in God and so forth. And you pull the devil out, and I won't do it anymore. I did it in one of my seminars. I had 500 people, and there's this woman, you have to learn how to see who's possessed, and you can't look into their soul. If somebody's possessed, you can't look in, and always look away a bit. They're not going to connect with you. So I saw this woman, all these problems, and, I help people in my classes. And so I said, you've been possessed. And I came over to her, and right now I command the spirit to come out of you. And the secret is, this is a really funny one. The secret is you pull on the ear. I'm going to take you out right now. I command you to come out. I'm in the name of God. All right.
Really?
And you take the ear, and evidently the ear is super, super sensitive, and it causes agony to bad spirits. So you kick them by the ear. I didn't have to pull, I just squeeze a little bit. I'm going to keep doing this till you leave, and you go into the light. This is not the place for you to be. I command you to leave this woman now, just like they do on TV. Yeah. But I was squeezing on the ear. The reason this is a funny story is grandmothers used to take you by the ear because you're not listening. Yes. They take you by the ear. So this is an ancient technique. I've studied all these ancient things, but I'll tell you the sweetness of this story. I'll never do it again, because as soon as this woman screaming out and then collapsed on the floor, 20, 30 people left my class. Okay. They said, if that spirit's out, I'm out of here. I don't want to get me. Yeah. So it wasn't not my journey to do, but I just learned how to do it when I was in India. And so I thought, I'll try this, and it worked. Right. Well, 6 months later, I got a postcard from that woman. She said, I was a homeless person. Somebody gave me a free ticket to your seminar. I was strung out on drugs, addicted to drugs. And I left that seminar. I've never done a drug since. I'm now a chef on a shrimp boat. And it
Wow.
changed my life. Amazing. I mean, I just give
Wow.
that as a real life kind of tingling experience of we do become possessed. People don't know that. The more
Right.
you believe a lie, when you believe in a lie, the spirits can possess you because you're not believing the truth.
Right.
And all of this, that's what they used to call alcohol spirits, because you're
Yes.
depending on something outside of your soul, and they can get in and they can put thoughts in your mind and they can change you. And so what we had is this huge, whenever you lie to the public, dramatic lies, then people become possessed and they don't realize it. That it changes your brain. That it just
So
controls your thoughts. I just look at all of the ancient pictures of these old artists. They always have like a devil over here and an angel over here. You can see these are the voices inside of us.
right.
What was
Well,
it?
I do believe that there's a spiritual warfare going on, and
I'm right with
everybody
you.
that I talk to agrees with me. Nobody, nobody is saying, "Oh no, there's not." Like
Oh my
everybody.
God, it's so much warfare. Just, what just happened in LA. This was crazy. It
Not
happened in Hawaii. There was no water. They cut off the water in Hawaii. They cut off the alarm system in Hawaii. That they held the people into the city. This is not me conspiracy. This is all the
I
facts.
know.
How did that
I
happen?
know.
The same thing down in
Draining the
LA. They
reservoirs,
emptied out the reservoir of
all of them.
114 million gallons of water, and they emptied it out. It was emptied out a year before, and they never replenished it. And then here
Fire.
come the winds, and the mayor leaves town, and the fire.
She's done.
Yeah,
She's
well,
done.
they're all done. I hope people wake
Yes,
up.
I
This
agree.
was intentional. This is to wipe it out. They wanted to put in 2028 smart city. Okay, it's already been planned. Same thing in Lahaina. It was a smart city. They planned it, and now they can change the zoning because they were a disaster. They're going to put a smart city in there. They want to put a smart city in that area. It's a beautiful area. Why not have a smart city there? A smart city is a place where you can't come and go without permission. A smart city. It's complete totalitarianism that some crazy people want to control everything instead of letting the divine force teach us right and wrong. Not somebody telling us what we have to do, but we learn by making mistakes. So if somebody's always controlling me, I don't have the free will to make mistakes, suffer, and correct myself, which in Christianity is the word repent. And then if you repent, you're forgiven. If you don't repent, you're not forgiven. All these people are complaining to Christians, I thought you're supposed to be tolerant. No, we are intolerant of sin. We're intolerant of anger. We're intolerant of negativity, of abuse, of pedophilia, all this crazy stuff that's going on. We are intolerant of that. But if you repent, we're very forgiving. Forgiveness comes after repentance.
And we thank God that you repented. Yeah.
And that's how, I continue to grow in my life. I'm 73 years old. I always feel like I'm 35. My sex life is like that. I'm alive. I'm healthy. I do all these good things, of course. But one of the biggest things is I repent, meaning when I make mistakes, and I make mistakes all the time, I analyze the mistake and I apologize for it. And I forgive myself and I ask for forgiveness. And then, but the most important thing is then I learn a lesson, and then I commit myself to learning that lesson. Anything bad that happens, I have to learn from it and commit myself to learn from that. And I can break the pattern and things change in my life. I'll tell you the funniest thing, Erin. I'm kind of a far out person out there, but I love you. So I'll share. We have in palmistry, this whole science of palmistry, lines in your hand. It's amazing. And that's how I got laid so much after being, after being a monk. I studied palmistry. And then I would read women's palms. And once you can touch them in a non-sexual way, they feel very safe and tell them about themselves.
And the feet reflexology and the whole bit.
Yeah, the whole thing. The ear has point, everything. So it's amazing, miraculous world. I'm not a master of palmistry. But what is unique is that when the left hand is generally your destiny, and your right hand is what you make of your destiny. And usually people are pretty much similar. But what I can see the line right here, it's different from the line over here. And when I was 21 years old and I went off 9 years to be a celibate monk, my lifeline broke and another line grew up. And then when I came back to the world, then it connected again and my life went on. I watched my hand going. Then what I've just noticed, I was just noticing today, my fate line, which is a line that goes up like this, had always been different on my right hand when I started studying palmistry. It went to another finger. But now what I'm looking at is that my fate line has disappeared on my right hand. It's like I'm totally into the space of creating my reality. And this is
Wow.
what I'm teaching people to do through love, through forgiveness, for doing a good thing. And how do you, for people to understand karma? Karma is you do bad things come to you. And
Right.
so, which by the way, if you look at LA now, it looks kind of like Gaza, doesn't it? Just to put that thought in there.
Yeah.
What goes around comes around, however you want to look at it. But
Karma's
the
the real
reality,
deal. It's the real deal.
yeah, it's a real deal. It's also for us to
Universal
learn.
law. Go
It's
ahead.
a universal law. It's a universal law. And if you're mean to your partner, they're going to be mean back. If you push at somebody to change them, they're going to push back. That's just the way it is.
Multipliers. Not only will we push back, but we take it in, we multiply it, and we push it back that much more.
That's
Because
right.
women by
That's
nature.
how you. So when you can continue to let go and forgive and let it be, just let it be, let them be. You know, part of my message of Mars Venus is let men be men, let women be women, and you'll be able to see more of who we can be. And if we're always trying to change each other, you get less. And what is so much potential there can come out if we just let them be who they are. But to do that, we have to have some sense of what they're doing and being is somewhat normal, and you don't need to be fixed. You don't need to be changed. It's like when a woman's talking and upset about things that don't bother me, and why are we talking so much about it? Hey, that's her way of finding her way back to feeling centered and good. Now I teach in my books that's producing estrogen, which lowers women's stress levels. Men go to their caves. You know, you think, well, if he's a loving person, he should always be attentive to me and interested in me. No, he needs time apart. You know, we all need time apart. We need time together, connection, detachment. This is all part of life.
But men need time to go into the cave and regroup so that they can emerge again.
Yeah, we can't get when I'm with my wife all the time, and I'll expand it even more. When I go to spend the day with my granddaughter, oh my gosh, there's so much love. Whenever you're feeling love, estrogen's going up. And when estrogen goes really up, women thrive with that. But for men, when estrogen goes up, it's a bit of a seesaw. Their testosterone can go down. And so literally you become exhausted. After being with her for all day, I'm so tired when I come home. I have to go to my cave and just forget all my problems and reboot. And I'll tell you, for you as a woman, you're very wise not to be looking at the news. For me, the news is good for me. News is a cave activity for some men. And that's a healthy cave activity because you're looking at other people's problems. So when I look at the news, all I do is feel like I know so much more than you. You are so stupid. You know, you think you have your own problems. There's bigger problems out there. So for many men, watching the news is a good thing, although it can be addictive. There's no question about it.
Right.
And anything that where you feel like, oh, I got to go do that. You have to break that pattern for a while and then come back to it and find the regular balance.
So my concern with regard to that for men, my concern is that there's a whole movement for decades now that they're demasculating men, right? They're just trying to take away from literally.
Yes, completely. Oh my gosh.
Like not even like beating around the bush kind of a thing. Like they just flat out are trying to do that. And then, you know, like I want people to go and study your material because you breathe life back into the way men and women really to better understand themselves. Like I said, you took something in the 90s that was so complex, trying to understand the differences between men and women and made it so simple. And yet somehow, you know, society was able to take that simplicity and it made it so good.
Yeah.
You made relationships with men and women so much better. And then yet, like it was all taken away. And then men had to like squash their masculinity. Women had to become more masculine, you know, like, and so now the women are in their masculine energy. Men are not in their masculine energy. They're not even in the feminine energy. They're in the confusion of everything. How do you fix that?
Well, one is awareness and knowing if you're steering a ship, you've got to know navigating a ship in the old days, you'd have to know where the North Star is. That is ideal behavior. We're never going to be perfectly going North Star, but you're going off to the east, now you shift back. Okay, the west, watching where triangulating yourself with a constant point. So what is the constant point? That's what we would used to call normal. Okay, or what we could call is good, you know, life supporting behaviors that are life supporting. And because see, if you follow your feelings, which we're going to all follow our feelings. Well, my feelings is when I eat ice cream, I feel really good. Now later on, I get fat and I'm not feeling good. Oh, when I'm eating it, it feels good. Don't tell me not to eat ice cream. I said, hey, buddy, guess when you eat ice cream, a little bit, fine.
Moderation. Yeah.
Moderation. Okay. It's moderation. Oh, but I feel like it, whenever a man does something on his female side, it's very easy, okay, to get to your female side. And for women, to go to their male side is actually one of the easiest things. It's hard to be feminine. Feminine means to be receptive and dependent on something or someone. It's so much easier to just go, hey, I'll have fun doing it all myself. I don't have to rely on anybody. You won't be disappointed. But think of it, the essence of femininity. If we just look at the female side, it is feeling receptive. I can receive something. I appreciate it. I feel grateful. I feel happy. Oh, I got this. Oh, I have this. One of the simple things I say is, if your wife's stressed, encourage her to go shopping. Okay. Just go shopping. Look at what I could have. Look at what I can wear. Look at how I look. All these kind of things is very feminine because it stimulates estrogen. Right. And then the things that stimulate testosterone is you have a goal, you're making sacrifices to achieve your goal. You have a sense of dignity that comes with hard work. You don't complain. Oh, all we're doing in psychology is teaching men to complain. Talk about your feelings. Well, what are you feeling? What are you upset about? Sure, I've got a female side, but if I start talking too much about what's upsetting me and bothering me,
right,
estrogen's going to go high. And when estrogen goes high, testosterone tends to go low, and his stress level will go up. So this is the simple biology is if you look at a man, is a man, a DNA man.
Right. Yes.
Meaning there's only two. There's a man and a woman DNA. Okay. You got this. So you've got the male side. If a man is experiencing the hormone cortisol is a stress hormone. Cortisol causes you to look at the negative, not the positive. For both men and women, you're going to look at the negative, not the positive. So when cortisol is elevated, and we also know that's called fight or flight. Right. You're going to either pull away from intimacy or you're going to fight. Okay. And then there's two other things that are not well known, more feminine, is fake and fold. It's like if you're in danger, somebody comes in, a big scary person, you go, oh, would you like some cookies? You'd be a people pleaser and try to accommodate them. That's faking. You're really terrified of this person. Right. And then fake and fold, this is how you just kind of give up, just surrender. I'll be a doormat and whatever. This is different stress reactions from our male and our female side. So when you have, and that's all in Men Are From Mars, the 4 F's, and then about the hormones is in this book, which is the Beyond Mars and Venus. I know you love that book. So to make it real simple for people, if you've got a woman's body, when you're feeling stressed, your estrogen levels will always be too low and your testosterone will be high. So there's nothing wrong with high testosterone. That's solving problems, fixing things, but it has to be balanced with more estrogen in the balance. If your estrogen is low, then what the standards are. So what are the standards? They look at standards in comparing for men and women. A woman, you look at the chart for women, a happy woman, well-being, her estrogen levels at a certain point. Look at a happy man, his estrogen is much lower. Her estrogen needs to be 10 times higher than the average man. Otherwise, she's stressed. And for men, you can look at his testosterone levels and compare it to a woman's. And women make a lot of testosterone, different levels of it, whatever. But generally, a happy man versus a happy woman, his testosterone levels will be 10 times higher than hers. So men need to make more testosterone. So we do these things that women think, what are you doing that for? Why that? Go to your cave. Well, go to your cave as a testosterone producer.
Right.
Everything has a paradox to it. Going to the cave is only a testosterone producer if he just used up his testosterone by work.
Okay.
So men have to work. When they work, then they need to go to their cave to rebuild their testosterone. It's a reaction to working hard, solving problems. Now I'm going to give myself little problems or think about other people's problems, but I don't feel any pressure to do anything. But like hobbies, that used to be a big thing for men. Hobby, when the president says, I'm going to play golf, people go, oh, he's wasting his time playing golf. Are you kidding?
Right.
This is how he recovers from stress.
Yes.
These are like normal things for men. And ironically, there's also things that help men to temporarily boost their testosterone that are not productive cave time, and that would be pornography. Men, will go to pornography. They'll forget their problems, which is how your testosterone go up. They'll feel really good because it's a thing that makes you feel really, really good. Dopamine levels shoot up, testosterone levels shoot up, and then they crash, just like any addiction. And what we have is a society of people addicted to porn. I mean,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
just such a sad, sad thing. It's so addictive and it's so available. That's the problem with it. Cocaine's not that available. It's kind of like sugar. Sugar's another addiction, and it's so available. It's in everything.
Not
Well,
like porn. Porn
porn is
is, and I remember you telling me that like when people masturbate and stuff like that, that their spouse will or their partner will never satisfy them because they can't get to those levels of dopamine.
absolutely, absolutely. That partner can't get to those levels, and they'll never want to satisfy their partner after time. Men who do porn lose interest in their partners. It's as simple
Right.
as that. Because if I did porn, my dopamine levels would be maybe 10 times higher than with my partner. So my partner stimulates me, has plenty of dopamine. But when you get to the high dopamine level, it's like huge rush. And then it desensitizes the receptor sites. Then you're making love to your wife and you're thinking about that other woman. How's she supposed to feel intimate? How's she supposed to
Right.
receive your energy? Somebody else is getting it. Life is energy. And
Right.
so it's sex energy. It's big stuff.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
it's a polarity that builds up. And part of why we lose passion in relationships, I mean, that would be a big, big killer of passion, is either one of you doing fantasy with other people. And the irony is, I talk to men who say, I thought that was good. My therapist told me that was good. That would help keep my sex drive going. No, what creates sex drive is polarity. When
Right.
you're more masculine than your partner and she's more feminine than you're like the north and south pole of a magnet, which will attract. And if you become too much the same, which is happening to men today, they're being more feminized and women are becoming more masculine, their polarity goes away very quickly. But
Right.
but it didn't in the beginning. Quite often they still have polarity in the beginning, because what polarity produces is more testosterone in men, more estrogen in women. It builds up. You have to start from a place of more testosterone, more estrogen. It just compounds and goes higher and higher.
Right.
Well, in the beginning of a relationship, because there's newness and sex, it shoots up the dopamine to cocaine levels. And when dopamine goes up to cocaine levels, what that does for women is it increases the polarity. Their estrogen levels shoot up, their men's testosterone levels shoot up. So you have this artificially induced polarity rather than a normal, happy, peaceful life. You've been together years and years and years, but you still have that high testosterone, high estrogen, because you understand how to stay polarized. And
Right.
one of the examples is that if I was to complain to my wife about anything, the polarity's gone. How many women have lost complete attraction to their husband because their husband feels bad, he's depressed, or he complains a lot, or he gets angry? Those are all symptoms, what I just described, of low testosterone and high estrogen.
And then the
But
woman's not going to go into receptive mode because then we
she
feel
can't.
like we're taking more than what they can give, and you don't want to do that
Say
also.
that again. Say that again.
Because then women who are naturally in receptive mode,
Yep.
right? If men are feeling that low of where they're at, we're going to feel bad asking them to give us more than what they've got.
That's right. That's right. You don't know how to ask. Asking is one of the most important things. And you want to, when you say, you start to feel bad and sorry for him. See, that's the word I thought.
You feel bad about like being greedy and saying, I need.
I don't want to take from him. I don't want to take
Right.
anything from him.
Right.
That's a mother, one of the aspects of your mothering side. Okay. And you cannot be turned on to a person who's like a child who you want to
Right.
help. You should never feel you need to help a man. And yet I just watch these couples help. The woman's helping them all the time, and there's no sex drive. The poor guy just henpecked, whatever. And she doesn't understand. Don't give men unsolicited advice about what to do. Just as men should not give women unsolicited advice about how they should feel. That's our big thing, is we tell you shouldn't feel that way. It's not a big deal. Well, what's the point? Why do you need to talk about this?
Right.
And the irony is that these are some more advanced techniques, but I want to share one for people who are a bit more advanced and understanding the essence of psychology, is that, have you ever had something upset you and then 2 days later you're not upset and nothing has changed, right? Everybody knows that. That means when you were upset, you were overreacting. You were making something a bigger problem than it really is. Because just 2 days later or 10 years later, you go, it wasn't really a big deal. Well, wouldn't it be great if right now you can think that's not a really big deal? Now, for men, this is a very healthy thing to know, is that whenever I'm unhappy about anything, it's because biologically my estrogen levels are too high, my testosterone is too low. Otherwise, it's no big deal. That's when your testosterone's up and your estrogen is in a healthy place. Nothing's a big deal. I got it. I got it handled. I can do it. So this is your male side. Now, when women are like that, they're on their male side. There's nothing wrong with that. However, over time, their stress levels can get higher if they're not doing things to nurture their female side, because talking and expressing themselves and being heard and being seen and being vulnerable, these are things that keep her estrogen levels up. So
Yes.
I would never say to a woman, you're overreacting, because when a woman is overreacting, one of the best things she can do is have somebody validate what she's feeling.
Yes.
So if
Yeah.
I say to her, you're overreacting,
That's
why are you
annoying.
so it kills everything. And I used to try to convince Bonnie, my wife, she's passed on now, but I said, honey, just say everything I'm about to say is completely irrational and I can hear it 100%. And she said, if I have to say it's irrational, then I can't feel it because I'm a logical person. But anyway, for a guy, I tell you, it's amazing for a guy. If he understands that all negativity in me is my overreaction, then
Mm,
I do this with my wife. Anytime I occasionally something pushes a button and I get upset about something or worry about something and start to complain, she won't hear my complaints. She'll say, John, you're just overreacting. Suck it up.
there you go.
Hey, this is such a thing that men used to do for each other. Don't worry about it. Suck it up. No big deal.
Right.
Who cares? You know,
Man up. Yeah.
that's right. The man up thing, which is it's a little insensitive these days because men are on their feeling side. So
Right.
to deny that they're being men is a hard thing. But to say you're overreacting doesn't imply that you're not being manly. But it's you be manly by sucking it up. And then I analyze this. This is always a work in progress. So men need more testosterone. When the testosterone goes down, that's when their confidence is not as great. And when you're confident, nothing can upset you. Okay. When you have confidence, nothing upsets you. Somebody doesn't like you. That's their problem. I'm okay. So when our confidence always goes along with our testosterone levels. If you've got low testosterone, you've got low confidence. And if
Right.
you've got estrogen over on your female side, because you're not following through on all your goals and you're a little lazy, you're passive in your life, that's all estrogen for men. You're going to be complaining. Your mind's just going to complain, complain, complain. The other day, something was happening and I really wanted to complain. It was like a force. You got to complain. You got to just suck it up. And I sucked it up. I'm not going to do it. And I realized sucking it up, I had to contract my ab muscles. So this is actually what sucking it up means. Suck in your ab muscles, and men have more abs than women, and we're designed to have more abs. So just suck it in and not. And so what you're doing is you're tightening your muscles, which is always creates testosterone. Just
Oh.
sucking it up creates testosterone. You could take another version of this. If you don't have abs, you could do push-ups. Your wife's upset with you. You want to react back. Let me do a few push-ups.
Right. You're saying do that before you actually sit down and have the conversation about it.
I'm saying in the
Don't
middle of
just
the
suck it up.
conversation,
Don't
if
just
I'm getting
suck
triggered,
up buttercup.
if I'm being triggered or upset,
Right.
just lift a few weights. Do some
Right.
push-ups. Let me pump up my testosterone, and then then I can say, now tell me more. Tell me
There
more.
you go.
Otherwise, men react. And when men react, women lose it completely. Then their estrogen crashes because an angry man does not promote estrogen in a woman. You cannot
Yeah.
feel safe in the
No.
presence of an angry man. And
No.
what is all this psychology doing to men? You should talk about your feelings, express your feelings, cry, be sad, all these things. And yes, I'm not saying never cry. I cry at movies for sure when people die or bad things happen. But
Right.
generally speaking, I cried for 2 years after my wife died of cancer. That was a terrible thing for me. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's an old Chinese saying, which is a man should never cry unless his heart is broken. See, it has to be big things. And then I found
Yes.
the scientific research showing that is
Okay.
that when men have big stress, what happens, then there's a flood of blood flow to the emotional part of the brain. When
Okay.
men have little stress, there's a decreased blood flow to the emotional part of the brain. So it's healthy for men when the problem is not big to not be upset about it. If the problem is big, then you be upset about it. But the things to be upset about as a man is when your heart is broken. If you've got all this estrogen, you start getting upset about everything.
That's what I wanted
Now,
to ask you about young
just
adults.
one quick thing on that, just as not missing.
Go
When
ahead.
you're a boy, when you're a child, it's completely different. We're different beings up to puberty. And what happens for a male at puberty is his testosterone increases 10 times. This is like a crime against every little boy that's being considered to be a girl. He never gets a chance to be a boy. See, you're not a boy. You got a boy brain to some extent. And for some children, maybe a little less because of the hormones, the mother's hormones while in the womb. His brain didn't fully form the male side, but the brain is still plastic. All it has to do is do male things. and his brain will start developing the male side. But his hormones, after 2 years, his hormones will be just like a little girl's. His testosterone is like a little girl. His estrogen is just like a little girl. And he's totally vulnerable. He's affected. He needs to cry or get upset. But if he cries too much or he does too much girl stuff, what you do is, in a loving way, get out in nature and have him climb some trees, do some things, have the father be with him. No mother over there. Get the mother out of the picture for a while, because you can't have somebody worrying about him all the time. That just weakens you. So there's so much that's not known today. If your child is too much on the female side, all you have to do is help them get to the male side. My mother did this for me. I'm the 5th boy in the family. There were 6 boys. I have a little brother. I was the 5th boy. And clearly, on some subconscious level, my mother was wanting a girl after having 4 boys. So my little soul said, well, I can be a girl, but I'm a male. Okay. But I'm very sensitive. I'm very loving. I'm very joyful. I'm very compassionate and empathy. I cry for other people. I used to sit, and when the rain would come down, I'd cry for the people who were homeless. And I never even seen a homeless person. My mother just thought I was so sweet. And we were very, very close. I mean, she felt safe with me because I'm a very sweet guy. Yeah. Well, and what she did is she realized he needs to have more male support in her life. And so she would get men to do things for me. Like she had me, I have a karate teacher when I was 10 years old or something. She had me studying karate, martial arts, before that, do boxing, and then do judo, had all these things of male on male combat, where I had a mentor who was masculine. Okay. Cause my dad was traveling a lot. He wasn't a bad dad. He was just traveling a lot. And then we had lots of sports that we did. She made sure that I was doing competitive things. Then at 13 or 14, around maybe 12 or 13, she brought me to get a paper route. So I'd be an entrepreneur. And they said, he's too young. Then my mother says, well, then I'll take on the paper route. Here's my mother for me. So I ended up having the paper route and taking on responsibilities, making money, having a job. She always encouraged me. I had jobs all the time. So she was strengthening my male side in that. And even when I decided to go off and become a monk, she was very supportive of that, because becoming a monk, a celibate monk, is totally strengthening your masculine side. It's all about discipline. And that's why, people are monks, is usually they're way too far on their female side. And so they're vulnerable to becoming addicted to sex. Okay. So they're just too much on their female side. So what being a monk is complete discipline, disciplining the sexual energy. And, basically, I don't want to talk more about that, but anyway, it's all about, I used to fast. I would discipline myself. I do the exercise every day. I do the long out meditation. You follow strict rules, which makes sense to you, because there's the promise of enlightenment. I was so all ready to get enlightened. I got enlightened. I got so many enlightenments. Every year I have some new enlightenment. I have a new enlightenment this year. I'm going to write 10 books. Okay.
I love that.
and
you
shoot for the stars. If I get one off, that would be good. But I'm one of those little fleas still stuck in the jar. I haven't written anything since then. My life's so easy and comfortable. I'm having lots of sex. I enjoy myself. Got remarried. Everything is great. Got a grandchild. Hey, John, you got to get out there and work. You're here in the world to do something, to be selfless and to serve the world. So I got back my mojo, so to speak.
Yes. And you could do 10 books. You could do anything. You could do, be, and have anything you want.
I've written 28 books behind me, and I can rewrite every one in terms of the modern world. Okay. When I wrote those books, I knew nothing about hormones and biology and brain chemistry and supplements. One of my books is going to be, 9 supplements for lasting life or for longevity, and just explain the new discoveries is the title of that one. In brain science, there's so many new discoveries. I mean, people are reversing age and so forth. And then there's the super expensive stuff, and then there's the cheap stuff. So I'll write a book on that. Why not? These are all the things I'm interested in.
Happiness reverses age. Just keeping life simple, finding the joy in life, smiling a lot, be around people that makes you laugh, and that
you certainly make me happy. Thank you, Erin.
Likewise.
I de-aged today.
Likewise. You're aging backwards.
Right.
Life is amazing. I learned about the spiritual universal law in 1991, and when I had the cancer for 2.5 years in Sloan Kettering. And I didn't know anything about spiritual universal law because I was a stockbroker on Wall Street. It was very like, my Aunt Rita.
Very Martian, very
Oh
Martian.
my God. My Aunt Rita was one of the first institutional traders on Wall Street. And when I was a little girl, I was riding around in limos with Aunt Rita in Brooklyn. So I became a stockbroker, very superficial. I only cared about my Chanel bag and my house out in the Hamptons. And, the outer world was going to tell me who I was, how pretty I was, how smart I was. The outer world was going to tell me.
That's right. You found your self-sufficiency.
Right. And then I went within from reading all of like the personal development books. And then when I tapped into you, and Shaki Gawain was one of my original mentors.
Yeah, I know Shaki. Yeah.
I love Shaki.
Yeah,
Oh my God. So creative visualization.
It was a big breakthrough book.
2 books when I got sick that I read. The first 2 books was John Kabat-Zinn's Full Catastrophe Living, which introduced me to mindfulness meditation with a cassette tape in the back of the book, and Shaki Gawain's Creative Visualization. I married meditation with visualization and became unstoppable. Then I came across your books later on, about relationships and stuff like that. And it took all of what I learned about spiritual universal law, law of assumption, which leads to the law of vibration, which leads to the law of attraction, all of these amazing law of karma, law of reciprocity, life is a boomerang. And then when I came across you, John, and I'm reading about how to apply all of this to relationships, it was like all of these light bulbs just kept going off in my head. I'm like, this is amazing, but then like you get married, you have kids, over time, you start to kind of like get away from all of it. I'm not meditating within the first 17 seconds anymore of waking up and meditating as I'm falling asleep, and you pull away from it. And then I realized when I was going through the divorce back in 2013 to 2016, I was in my masculine energy, right? I'm fighting, kids are little, I'm fighting for what I need to do, and I'm showing up to court, and nobody's going to take advantage of me, and da-da-da-da-da. And then I had to grow my business. Now I'm a full-on CEO, grow my business, and I was so in my masculine energy, and it was not fun. It was not fun. And I had to tap back into my feminine energy intentionally.
Yes, it has to be intentionally. It has to be intentionally.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's like a snowball going down the hill. You got to be aware. I need to shift gears now. It's the end of the day.
Totally. And then I went into receptive mode. And when you're growing a business as a woman, I don't want to say most, all, whatever, a lot of women are in their masculine energy, and they feel that they have to be the men in the suit at the meeting and everything else. I learned when I tapped into my feminine energy, I became unstoppable, confident, my self-image, self-esteem, like it's there, but in my feminine energy where I go into receptive mode, I delegate a lot.
Yeah, that's the key, delegation.
And then, when you're in receptive mode and you're just open to, life is so much better, and it's so much, the world could be, going into chaos and everything else all around you. Drones are all over Long Island. I'm on Long Island here in New York, and like everything's still, but I love my life. Every day I wake up and I say there's 16 hours of endless opportunities in front of me today. There's 16 hours of pure potential. I can't wait to see the people, place, and things that God's going to put in my life today, and life is fun. It's fun.
Erin, you're such an inspiration. I've gone 10 minutes over, so I have to got another counseling appointment I got to go to here. So.
Oh, go.
Okay.
Anyway, you are a blessing. I love you so much. I'm blessed to call you friend.
Yeah. And for those of you that are far out, my mother was an astrologer, and, I stay up on it a bit. And Pluto has gone out of Capricorn, and it's in the sign of Aquarius, which is the sign of freedom. Ooh. So this is, and Pluto is a force that creates resistance. The last 20 years, there's been a lot of struggle and resistance and push and pull. All that goes along with Pluto and transformation. That's the suffering side of transformation. Change happens when we suffer and we say, okay, I'm done with that. We are done with it. It happened in November. The planet changed. We are done with all this craziness. We're done with all this fear. We're done with these things. And I'm moving ahead. And I'm so happy to be, in this new time where I'm free. I'm able to move forward. And thank you so much for having me on the show. And people can visit me at marsvenus.com. Thank you for.
Yes.
Okay.
You are the best. All right. Do you have 2 seconds or no?
2 seconds, yes.
On the other side of this? All right, 2 seconds. All right, everybody, have a magnificent day. John is an absolute blessing. Go to marsvenus.com. Check out all of his work. He has courses there, his books, everything is there. He's amazing, as you can tell. And have a magnificent day. And always remember to live onward and upward. Love you.